Okay, in this video, I'm going to show you a little bit about how to get to and then use the free virtual cadaver program that we have at UFV. It's called Primal Pictures or Anatomy TV. So I'm going to show you how to get there, and then I'm going to show you a little bit what it's like when you open it and how to use it, just a very basic way. So you're going to go, I'm just going to start at Google to make it simple for you. You're going to go to the UFV website. And you can just go to the home page of the website, and once you get to the home page, you can go and click on the library. So I'm going to go up here and select this library tab, and it's going to take me to the online library for the UFV website. I'm going to go and select research, help, and guides. So this tab right here, and it's going to take me to all of these different colored tabs or regions on the site, and there's a bunch of interesting stuff here. And on the red one, so under research guides, you can see that there's actually specific courses listed here or programs. So I'm going to select kinesiology right there. I'm going to go and select kinesiology, and it's going to take me to a separate tab. And this is actually a really handy site for wherever you are in your kines degree. There's a bunch of different tabs here that have different items on them. So research basics, this is a really good one that's used in another class that I've taught before, Kin 161. And it gives you a good idea about how to think about research, how to go through that process. But anyways, there's ones for all different courses that you would take, sports psychology, ethics, all kinds of stuff. So we're going to go back to the anatomy and physiology tab here. And you can see the first thing that pops up is this primal pictures of the skeleton, adding and subtracting different tissues on it. And you can just click right on that person's skull, and it's going to load Anatomy TV for you. So this is the program that you're going to be using if you choose to use Primal. And there's a couple different tabs that we actually can use on here. Some of them are a bit irrelevant for what we're doing, just almost strictly anatomy in this course, certainly in the lab component of it. So the first place you can go is the 3D Atlas, and you can select any one of these preset, and you can load any one of these presets, and it's going to take you to this page. And this is a little bit more simplistic than the other piece of Primal that I'm going to show you, but it'll basically load these presets that you can just kind of spin. You can select things, it'll tell you what it is. Pretty basic format for viewing the anatomy of the body. So you can spin it, you can add or remove things, you can add a brain if you like, you can look at various things. I recommend that you use the other tab though. This one is a little bit basic. So if you go to the 3D real time, this is where you can get a full cadaver and move it around and drag it and add and remove whatever you like. And there's a bit more features to it. So I'm on an iPad right now. If you're using a PC or a Mac, a desktop of sorts, you can just select any one of these, and it'll open another tab on your internet browser, and you can just start using it straight away. On an iPad, for whatever reason, it's a little bit different. You're actually going to select it, and it's going to bring up this screen, and you're going to have to install this app. So click install the app. I'm on a Mac iPad, so Apple iPad. It takes me to the App Store, and then I just go and install the app. So I'm just go and select the whole body one, because it'll give you an entire cadaver. If you just go, say, and select the head and neck, it'll just bring up the app that has the head and neck. So select the whole body 3D real time. It'll say get, and it'll tell you there's in-app purchases and such, but we won't be dealing with any of that. So if you download it and then go back to your Safari browser, you should have it downloaded now. You can see on my iPad it's downloaded, so you have the 3D whole body there. And then I can come and select this whole body, and I'm going to launch the app. if you just try to use the app without going through the UFV library to get to this site and then launching the app, what'll happen is it'll ask you for a password as if you've paid to use the program. So this is if you just open the app alone by itself and try to use it that way. It'll ask you for your username and password, and you don't have one because we didn't purchase any license to use it. What's happened is that UFV has purchased a license for us. So when we log in through the UFV library, we gain access that way. So when we launch the app through the UFV library, it'll sign us in automatically, and you can use the app in its full capacity that way. So you kind of have to go through those steps unless you want to go and pay for your own account, which I don't recommend since it's already free. So it'll load all of the components of the app, and then it'll bring up this screen. So this is kind of where I recommend you spend your time, is just on this app here. So I'm going to start down the right. There's a lot of different buttons you can see going on this screen. First thing is you should probably just click on this little eye here up in the top right corner, and it'll bring up what the controls are. It'll tell you how to use these things. I'm going to go through some of this too, but if you ever forget or can't remember how to do something, just go click on that eye and it'll bring up this map of all the different controls that you can use to navigate this app. So I'm going to go through some of that. On the right hand side here, close this for now. On the right hand side here, you can see all of the different systems that our bodies are made of. So I can see the bones, brain, connective tissue. I can go down to muscles if I want, nerves. All of those different components are down here. If you just select each of the buttons, if you just select a button, say I want all the bones, it'll load all of the bones for me. If I want to use specific sets of bones, I can just look at a specific set. So if you would like all of it, just go ahead and click the button, the actual bones button. If you don't want all of it, open this little arrow and then select what you would actually like to see on your screen. So for this, I'm just going to click bones, and I'm going to have a full skeleton there in front of me. So you can go and go through all of this, and you can add whatever you like. So you can really make your own cadaver. You can make it up however you like with whatever different systems that you want to see on the screen. So it's very customizable, which is really nice. And it'll be useful once we start to get a little further into this and we've gone through the skeletal system and we've added muscles now, and we're talking about origins and insertions and where muscles are attaching and to bones. So you can really add just and make it customized to what you want to see. So that's down the right is all of our different systems, and you can put what you would want to see on your screen, how you want to see it. At the bottom, there's a set of controls as well, and I'm going to just clear the whole screen. So this clear button will just remove everything that's on your screen, and you can add back whatever you like. So I'm just going to start with the bones again. This button here, the single or multi, if I have it on single, I can select one button. So I have here selected the humerus. It tells you up in the left-hand corner. This is just happens to be the left humerus. If you select this little audio button here, it will actually pronounce it for you.
Humerus.
So that can be handy. I'm going to come back down to this single button. I'm going to click it, and then it'll say multi. And this allows me to select a handful of different bones at once. And this is nice when you want to, say, remove some stuff or hide it. So I can ghost it here, which sort of puts it in a translucent sort of look. I can make it solid again, or I can just straight hide it. So sometimes you might want to hide stuff. Certainly when we're looking at the digestive system, if you have the digestive system here, it can get quite crowded. So maybe you want to actually hide some ribs, or you want to hide certain organs to see other organs. It allows you to do that. And you can bring them back if you like. So I'm going to re-add all the bones. If you want to go to a set screen, a home screen, you can click, this button will change. So if it just says home, the bone that I have selected, it'll actually zoom into that bone, give me a good look at that bone. If I want to go back and see the whole skeleton, it'll say home all this time, and you can select it there, and it will zoom out to see a standard anatomical position view of this skeleton. These three buttons on the far left do some interesting things. So I can see sort of an X-ray view. I have this rib selected, this fifth rib, and if I click examine, it turns everything else into an X-ray view. So you can kind of get a good, it sort of highlights this single rib, which is really nice. If I click it again, it will bring it all back. I can inspect it, which is nice. It gives me just a single view of that one rib. This is really nice to look at different bony landmarks on bones specifically. So you're going to need to know what different landmarks are on certain bones. So it's nice to bring it into a really zoomed up view away from other bones, and you can look at those different bony landmarks when we get there. So if I click inspect, it'll take it back, bring it back into the full skeleton. And then I can click on context, which will give me some context on how it functions among other systems in that region. So you can see it hasn't brought up the whole body, it's just brought up this region of where this rib is. So you can kind of get an idea of what its purpose is. You know, in the case of a rib, its main job is to protect all of these really vital organs that lie just under your rib cage. And you can see that here. It's just, you know, acting as a protective shield, I guess you could call it, for things like your lungs and heart and stomach and all different kinds of organs within your within that rib cage. So those are the buttons at the bottom. And on the left-hand side, there's this little cube, which I think is a bit handy. Sometimes it's easy to get your model looking like this. If you just click on these different sides of the cube, it'll bring it back into a view that isn't all wonky. So I find that easier than trying to, you know, if my model gets all messed up, sometimes it's hard to get them back to, or the person back to a set view. So sometimes it's easier just to click on this and get it back to the view that you want. So that's what the little cube in the corners for. So to bring up the controls down the left-hand side, you can click on this little button up in the top left, and it'll bring up a whole set of other buttons that you can use. So this one with the letter T here is pretty much an informative tab for you. So any bone that or muscle that you're going to select or item that you're going to select of the body, it's going to give you a bunch of information on that bone. In this case, bone. So I've selected here the humerus. It's going to tell me what this bone is. It's going to give me a little bit about it, and then it's going to tell me some of these important landmarks on it. So I mentioned in some of the labs upcoming, you are going to be learning about A, what the bone is, and then B, some of the important landmarks that make up this bone. So for example, it'll tell you that this humerus has a head. If I inspect this bone, the head of this humerus is this right here that actually articulates with your scapula and it forms your shoulder. So that's a quite important landmark of this bone. You won't be required to know all of these. You're just required to know the ones that are in the lab manual. So always use that as a guide for what you're learning, because this is going to have way more information than you actually need to know. So that's what this T tab here for is, this letter tab. It'll give you a good idea of what's this bone is all about, what's important on this bone, and maybe even how it functions. The second tab, this one's a bit like the 3D Atlas, I find. It's just going to bring up these presets of different layers. So if I wanted to look at the head, for example, I can look at different versions of it. Obviously this has some of the deeper muscles. I can add a few more muscles. There has some nerves as well and some of the vascular system, and I can keep adding these muscles. So if we're looking at the face, maybe this is handy rather than coming over here and having every muscle on the face. So I'm going to clear this and just bring up our skeleton again. So these are a bunch of presets. You can also look at a group of muscles. So if I click the tab here up at the top, groups, I can look at the whole body, for example, or I can look at just an upper limb. And again, you can see all of the items that it brings up. It has arteries, it has bones, it has some connective tissue, ligaments, lymph, the lymphatic system, muscles, some nerves. So to me, I wouldn't always want that. We're going to learn anatomy sort of a system at a time. So like we're going to go through the skeletal system, and then we're going to go through the muscular system, and then the nervous system. So this might be a little bit more than you need at the moment. But that's what this tab is for. It'll give you a bunch of presets. If you do save some presets, it'll come up here in this favorites tab. I'm going to clear our cadaver again. This is a settings tab, so you can change some things. You can, if you like the white background, you can change it to white. If you like the black, change it there. You can change the highlight color of the bone. I have it set as orange. If you want green, you can set it to green. You can change some zoom speed. There's a bunch of different things that you can change in here. So just go through there and see what you like best. This is a nice one if you want to sort of test yourself. You can take away the title of the structure that you've selected, so it won't tell you what it is. The next tab down is going to be a useful one. I think this is going to be really useful for studying. So you have all of these different pins that you can use, and I'll show you what I mean by that. So I can select that, add a comment or a label, and I can select this and it'll actually tell me what that bone is. I can do the same thing here with these pins. So if I want to come down and pin this bone, it'll tell me, it'll leave a little pin on the bone and then it'll tell me what it is. And I can also go and remove these. So I can click this bone and it will remove that label. So now just the left radius is coming up, or I can go and remove this pin as well. And it's not removing it. It should remove it. Not sure why it is not. I can also add just a letterbox. So I can type something in here. So for example, if I want to label this, I have put a bunch of labels all over the skeleton, and I want to label it upper body bones, and I click done. It's going to leave a label here on the screen for me. Oh. So now I have this label on the screen, and if I add a few more labels like this, so I've just labeled a bunch of bones. One of the things that I can do is I can orient this skeleton how I like. And when the bones, or when the labels come back, so here when the labels come back, I can click this camera button here. And what it does is it saves an image for me. So I have it labeled now, and then I have all the bones that I would like to know also labeled, which is really handy. So you can go through the lab manual and you can select a view that you want of this cadaver or the skeleton, and you can label each one of those bones that you would like on one picture, And then you can label this as a picture here, and you can take a screenshot of it and use it to study. So that's a really handy feature of this. So this button here, I think is going to be really important for studying for you. This one, sharing link, don't need to worry about. And then here you can actually control the skeleton on the screen using these different buttons. I'm on an iPad, so I can use just my finger, or I can use 2 fingers and it'll move it around, or I can do a pinching motion and it'll zoom out, or I can do the reverse and it'll zoom in. So if you really need to use, if something's really not working, you can open this tab here and you can move the skeleton around as you would like. It's a bit slower, but you can use those buttons. So that's basically how to use Primal Pictures. You should have a good idea of how to use the buttons now and where to find things. And that was kind of my only intention of this video. So I recommend you spend a little bit of time this week going through this, figuring out how to use it. We won't necessarily be using it a great deal this first week, but when we start to get into the skeletal system in the coming weeks, this will be a really handy program for you to start using.